Welcome back to another week on Beyond Motherhood, beautiful mamas, beautiful humans. I'm Monique Bathurst, your host. And here on the potty, we speak to everything around motherhood, around being a woman, how we can reclaim ourselves as the woman outside of the mother, move through the overwhelm, the anger, the rage that's holding us back, and experience more joy and pleasure as mamas and as women. So, a big welcome if you're new around here. I'm so happy to have you here. And as I'm recording this, it's been a funny old week. This week, where I live in Southeast Queensland, we are anticipating a cyclone hit any day now. And today and tomorrow, it's Thursday as I'm recording this, schools are closed for the remainder of the week. Most businesses are closed. People are panicking and panic shopping. The shelves at the shops are empty. There's people prepping, which absolutely I've been doing a little bit of prepping myself just to be safe, but there is a little bit of like mass hysteria going on at the moment. And it's really had me reflecting on this control piece. And Mother Nature can really help us lean into this surrendering of control and letting go, because for many of us, like, and especially in motherhood, it has a way of making us want to control everything. And it can be really hard and really triggering. And yeah, like we just feel really anxious and nervous when we can't control this. And like we can be prepared as much as possible. But at the end of the day, we don't have control over what's many things in life. And this weather event has really highlighted that for me. And in motherhood, there's the mess, the tantrums, the to-do lists, all the things. And we often think we can plan better or try harder or stay on top of it all, when eventually we, typically finally feel like we just don't have enough hours in the day. And if we can't stay on top of it, we're not doing it quote unquote right. But something that I have learned and I'm continuously leaning into more and more is that when we let go of control, it can actually be such a key piece to starting to feel more joy, feel more ease, and feel lighter and even more pleasure in motherhood and as a woman. And so, this is what we're going to be diving into on today's episode. And we're going to be chatting all around why need for control is actually making motherhood harder for us, and how our nervous system and the dysregulation of our nervous system plays into this need for control, and how social conditioning and the role of social conditioning um, contributes to why we feel like we have to be in control and we need to be, quote unquote, we feel like we need to always be in control and on top of it all. And also how surrendering and just, yeah, this act of surrendering can really, and it's for me 100% helped me feel more alive, more present. As I said before, lighter. It's like this big exhale on your nervous system and just a more deeper connection to not only ourselves, but our kids and our loved ones. So, if you've ever felt like you're just continually wanting to just grip onto motherhood and just feel like you just need to control everything and everyone, and yes, I have been there and still have moments of it, then this episode is 100% for you. And the thing is, like, motherhood is unpredictable. Life can be unpredictable. And our brain loves predictability. And this is why it can be so triggering and nerve wracking and create anxiousness in us, because our brains thrive off patterns and that control and that predictability. So when there's often, this constant unpredictability in motherhood and in the environment, especially with kids, um, it it doesn't make us feel good if we haven't worked through it and we haven't expanded our capacity to live with that and to be with that discomfort, right? And so no matter how much we plan, and things rarely can go the way we want them to or expect, when kids get sick, when emotions are running high, routines get thrown off. And this is where, instead of embracing that sort of ebb and flow, we often then cling to the control even harder. And we try to regulate everything. And I mean, regulate by the, you know, we're trying to control everything, right? Not the regulation as in our nervous system and body. Like we try and like enforce this regulation of our kids, our children's emotions. If we have a partner that like their help, or you know, we might become really critical of them and their lack of help. Our home, our time, everything we're trying to control because we think control equals safety. And in many ways, because that is how we're wired, right? We need this sense of safety, even if it's not serving us. But the truth is, the more we try and control, this control actually doesn't create safety. It actually creates exhaustion because we're just constantly on, and it's this constant need and driver that we need to just have this control. And when it comes to our nervous system and this control cycle, this need for control that you have is often a sign of an overworked nervous system. It's in overdrive. If you constantly feel like you are having to manage everything, and you're likely in a state of fight or flight. And again, this is your body's way of trying to protect you. That's what it does. And that's what it's meant to do. And like I said, because for many of us, unpredictability has felt unsafe in the past. It doesn't feel good in our body because we haven't learnt the skills to manage it and to build that capacity to be with it. And when we're in this state, we react, we become super reactive instead of responding, and we get triggered more easily. And we snap at our kids, or we experience mum rage. We feel like we're failing because things just aren't going our way, because it has to be. Sometimes we have this mentality, and I know how it's like, it's my way or the highway. And especially when it's come to my kids, like I have caught myself in that cycle so many times where it's like, no, this is what we're doing. And like, you won't budge on that because you need to have that control. And it's not because we're bad mums or anything like that. It's just because our nervous system is overwhelmed. It's overwhelmed. And we've also been conditioned to believe that good mums, quote unquote, have everything under control. Like they're on top of it all. You know, we've got all our T's crossed, our I's dotted, and like we can just effortlessly juggle everything. And that's what society tells us we should be able to do. We should be calm, we should be patient, we should be present all the time, and a mother that never loses her shit. But this expectation really does set us up to fail, and it's impossible because we're humans, and we all experience every facet of the human emotion, the spectrum of the emotions, and B, it's just not how life is. We were never meant to do it all. We were never meant to do it alone, and we were never meant to do it perfectly, because perfect is an illusion, right? And unfortunately, because we've grown up as girls, as women, especially, this social programming has been internalized. So we then internalize these unrealistic standards, and then we end up feeling guilty. Hello, mum guilt. So anytime we don't have control, when the house is a mess, when our kids are acting out, we're feeling judged, when we feel like we're crumbling under the weight of it all, because again, in this day and age that we live in, many mums are working full time. They're running the household. They're the default parent and all the things. And instead of letting go, we tighten that grip. We really just tighten it. And we think that maybe, this time we'll finally get it right. And then the cracks begin to happen. And for many, it can have devastating effects. It can lead to breakdowns. It can lead to panic attacks. It can lead to just really shitty mental health, to be honest, and a real disconnect from yourselves, and often a disconnect from your family as well. And know that it's completely okay if you have experienced this before, or maybe even experiencing it now. Our society and the systems we have are just not set up for the way we live now, and for mothers, particularly mothers. I mean, there's that. I mean, I'm probably not going to get it right, but there's that quote goes around about being a mother is equivalent to, like, is it 2 or 2.5 full-time jobs? Um, but it's unpaid labor, right? So all of these things that we're doing on top of, if you are a working mother, and whether that's casual, part-time, full-time, running a business, like, it's no wonder that we are so fucking overwhelmed and stressed out and want to control everything, because it's like, feels like that's the only thing that we can do to kind of get through the day. But what actually happens when we surrender? And again, this is an art, this is a practice. I'm still practicing it. I still have moments. But when we do, the more we surrender, right, the more space. It's the more space we create internally, which then flows into our external world. We feel more joy. There's more space for connection and even pleasure in motherhood. And as a woman, like, when you start to really connect deeper with yourself, like, and create more spaciousness within, which for me, like, as I said, I'm still practicing this. And this has been a few years into my journey, like 3 years that I have really been doing this work on myself. But it honestly does create so much more capacity for you to feel more joy, and it allows your nervous system to, have that space to start to rewire those patterns and start to create new neural pathways in your brain, so that when you are faced with the overwhelm, when you are faced with unpredictability, when you are faced with a week that just turns to shit and pear-shaped, like last week I did, when my son had an accident and we thought he fractured his collarbone, and, like, you know, things like that, they happen when you have kids. Like, I was still able to create the space to still get the things I'd needed to get done within that week, prioritize things, deprioritize things, and still be there for him and get him to different appointments and ultrasounds and x-rays and things like that. But again, it was that unpredictable moment where, reflecting now, like, I was able to just let go and just surrender to the unknown and the uncertainty, which, again, this week it's coming up again with a cyclone, with a natural disaster. And surrender, it doesn't mean giving in or giving up. It actually is to soften, to trust that we don't have to control everything for things to be okay. Trust that we don't have to know all the answers. And it means learning to regulate, to rewire your nervous system, so that when you're faced with unpredictability and uncertainty, we can still feel an internal sense of safety. And that is huge, absolutely huge, and has been so pivotal in my own life. And when we stop micromanaging every little thing, and I've been very well known to micromanage, especially when stress is high, we can actually be more present instead. And we can enjoy our kids more, and we can feel more connected to our own needs and desires, and really just start to feel like ourselves again, start to know who you are outside of the mother, know yourself as a woman, as a human being. And so I just thought I'd give, yeah, I mean, there's lots of practical ways you can let go of control, and I won't get into too much of it. Um, but I'll share a couple. And the first one is just to notice your triggers, and really just start to pay attention to when you feel the need to control. Is it when the house is messy and it looks like a bomb's hit it? And that is, that has been in the past, not so much these days, because, again, I have done a lot of work into letting go of that, but it can feel so triggering and like you're actually going to die. Like, your nervous system and your brain's just like, there is a tiger chasing you, like, run or fight back, or, whatever it is, go and hide. Is it when your kids are too loud? Is noise a big one for you? And that, again, I think for a lot of us, parents, fathers and mothers, that can be a big one. I use headphones quite a lot, particular times of day when I know that I'm getting to the end of the day, I'm a bit more tired, exhausted, and I know that my patience levels probably aren't going to be as good as they are in the mornings. So these are signs of an overstimulated nervous system. So just noticing that for me, and it's something I still work on, it's when I feel really rushed and like time is really limited and rushing out the door. That can be one for me as well. So just starting to notice when your need for control shows up. And I guess for me, just coming back to the car incident when we have to rush out the door and get into the car, like that's when I start to notice like me starting to make demands at my kids, like you need to do this, you need to do that, like you know, and you start barking orders at them because that's how you feel like you need to be in control. So it's just paying attention, noticing it, and then you know you can use your breath from there. You can pause, and there's lots of other things that we can do to help ourselves using mantras. Like a big one for me that I've used over the years is this is not an emergency. This is not an emergency. Like just reminding yourself because your brain is and your nervous system is telling you that this is a threat, even if it's a perceived threat. So using mantras. Um, and then another thing that can really help, and again, I think this for many women, this can be really difficult. I know for me, it's something I'm still working on to let go of control, is to practice receiving. Let someone help you. Ask for help. Allow yourself to rest. Say yes to pleasure and joyful things in your life, like could be going for a solo walk in nature around the block or along the waterfront. It could be a hot coffee. It could anything that lights you up. Putting on a whatever it is, saying yes to pleasure and saying yes to receiving in all ways. You know, we can say yes to pleasure even if it's not physically someone coming to help you. Um, and that can just open the door to letting go of control as well. And that, again, is an art, it's a practice and an ongoing one for me, at least. So they're just a couple of bigger things, well, you know, things that you can start with and reach out for help, obviously, if it's something that you're finding is really consuming your life and having a flow and impact into your relationships. So always know that there is support and help out there. So the more we learn to let go, and as I said, it's an art, the more joy, the more pleasure, connection we honestly can create in our lives as mothers. And control, you know, it's not what makes you a good mother, right? Presence does, and the love that you give your children and your family and all the things that you do and so much more. And all of that comes when we just start to release that grip a little bit and start just to allow things to unfold. So I really just invite you today just to soften a little bit more, to breathe, to trust this week as you go forward. And you don't have to do it all. You don't have to control it all. You know, you just have to be here in this moment and is more than enough. So if this episode resonated with you, share it on your Instagram and tag me on your stories, or you can take a screenshot and let me know what hit home for you today, what resonated with you, and give this a 5-star review. Follow the podcast, and please never hesitate to reach out, DM me if you want to and want to share anything. I'm always open to connecting. So until next time, Mama, take a breath and just the invitation to try and release that grip a little bit more this week. I will see you next time.